The Mockery. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Defense Summit stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystalline floor, its ceiling disappearing into the artificial atmosphere above. Representatives from 47 species had gathered on the neutral station of Harmony Prime, their forms as diverse as the stars themselves. Towering insectoids clicked their mandibles in conversation with floating energy beings, while crystalline entities chimed musical notes that translated into tactical discussions. At the center of it all stood Commander Sarah Mitchell, the sole human representative, her simple black uniform looking almost primitive among the elaborate biosuits and energy fields worn by her alien counterparts. She carried a metal briefcase, its surface scarred from use, a stark contrast to the holographic data cores and quantum storage devices the others brought to display their military might. Admiral Zexatheron of the crystalline hegemony rose from his position at the central dais, his body refracting light into rainbow patterns as he addressed the assembly. The hegemony had led galactic defense for over 3 millennia, their particle beam weapons capable of carving through asteroid fields with surgical precision. We gather today to assess military contributions to our collective defense grid, Zexatheron announced, his voice resonating with harmonic frequencies that made the air itself sing. Each species will demonstrate their capabilities, and assignments will be made accordingly. The demonstrations that followed were spectacular. The Velatari showcased plasma cannons that could melt through moon-sized targets. The Carathian Empire revealed gravity weapons that compressed enemy ships into dense matter cubes. The Ethereal Collective displayed phase disruptors that could make entire fleets exist in quantum uncertainty. When Sarah's turn came, the hall had already begun to buzz with excitement over the advanced technologies they had witnessed. She approached the demonstration platform with measured steps, her worn briefcase in hand. The murmur of alien voices created a symphony of anticipation. "Honored delegates," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's translation systems, "humanity offers our military experience to the defense of our galaxy." She opened her briefcase, revealing objects that looked ancient compared to the sleek alien weapons they had just witnessed. Metal cylinders, crystalline explosives, and what appeared to be simple projectile weapons lay cushioned in foam padding. Dr. Kef Gornali, the insectoid military scientist, chittered with amusement. "Commander Mitchell, are these historical artifacts?" Sarah lifted the first item, a standard kinetic rifle used by Earth's infantry. "This is our primary personal combat weapon. It fires metal projectiles using controlled chemical explosions." The hall erupted in what could only be described as polite laughter. Energy beings flickered with mirth while the crystalline delegates chimed in harmonious amusement. Even the usually stoic Carathians allowed themselves what passed for smiles among their species. "Chemical explosions?" Admiral Zexatheron's voice carried barely concealed derision. "Commander, our records show that your species only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Perhaps you misunderstand the scale of modern warfare." Sarah maintained her composure as she continued her demonstration. She showed them grenades that used simple chemical reactions, missiles guided by basic computers, and railguns that accelerated metal slugs through electromagnetic fields. Each item drew more amused reactions from the assembled delegates. The ethereal representative, a being of pure energy contained within a shimmering field, spoke with a voice like wind through crystal. "These weapons operate on principles we mastered 20,000 years ago. Surely humanity has something more sophisticated. Our most advanced ship-to-ship weapons are nuclear missiles and kinetic bombardment systems," Sarah replied evenly. "We also employ chemical lasers and particle beam weapons, though these are considered experimental." The room fell into uncomfortable silence. Nuclear weapons had been obsolete in galactic warfare since before most species had achieved spaceflight. The technology was so primitive that it was almost quaint. Captain Vorth of the Mechanoid Alliance, his cybernetic enhancements gleaming in the hall's light, stepped forward. "Commander Mitchell, with respect to your species' enthusiasm, modern warfare requires adaptive shielding, quantum disruption fields, and reality-altering weaponry. The enemies we face have evolved beyond such elementary approaches. Admiral Zex Theron consulted with his tactical advisors, their crystalline forms creating a prism of light as they communicated. When he turned back to Sarah, his tone had shifted to one reserved for children who needed gentle correction. "Humanity's dedication is admirable," he said diplomatically. "However, frontline combat requires weapons capable of adapting to enemy countermeasures in real time. Your kinetic projectiles and chemical explosives, while charming, would be ineffective against modern defensive systems." Dr. Gornali buzzed his wings thoughtfully. "Perhaps Earth's forces would be better suited to supply line protection, cargo escort duties. Your ships appear sturdy enough for such roles." Sarah closed her briefcase with a soft click that somehow managed to echo through the vast hall. "With respect, Admiral, you haven't seen our weapons in action against real targets." "Commander," Zex Theron replied with patronizing gentleness, "we've run simulations. Chemical explosives produce predictable energy signatures. Kinetic projectiles follow ballistic trajectories. Energy shields can deflect them, adaptive armor can absorb them, and quantum fields can redirect them. These are solved problems." The formal assignments came 3 days later. Earth's military forces were relegated to protecting supply convoys and maintaining communication relays. The frontline defense grid would be maintained by species with appropriate technological capabilities. Sarah accepted the assignment without protest, but those who knew her recognized the steel in her eyes. Captain Marcus Chen, leader of Earth's Experimental Weapons Division, found her in the station's observation deck, staring out at the stars. "They think we're primitives," Marcus said, joining her at the reinforced viewport. "They think complexity equals superiority," Sarah replied. "They've forgotten that sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective." Marcus activated his personal communicator, establishing a secure channel back to Earth. "Command, this is Chen. Initiate Project Sledgehammer. Authorization code, keep it simple, stupid." The response came immediately. "Acknowledged, Captain. Sledgehammer protocols are active. Earth Defense Fleet is mobilizing." Sarah smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "They want to see our weapons in action against real targets? They're about to get their chance." The first indication that something was wrong came 16 hours later. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures approaching from the galactic rim, moving at speeds that should have been impossible. The readings were unlike anything in the galactic databases. Admiral Zex Theron called an emergency session as the signatures resolved into distinct contacts. Thousands of them, each one larger than a city, approaching in perfect formation. "What are we looking at?" Dr. Gornali chittered nervously, his compound eyes reflecting the tactical display. The station's most advanced sensors struggled, led to analyze the approaching fleet. When the results came back, the hall fell into stunned silence. The station's most advanced sensors struggled to analyze the approaching fleet. When the results came back, the hall fell into stunned silence. "Machine intelligences," the tactical officer reported. "Ancient design, predating any known civilization. They appear to be adapting to our sensor sweeps as they approach." Captain Vorth's cybernetic enhancements sparked with concern. "Impossible. Adaptive systems require time to analyze and respond. Nothing can adapt that quickly." The first contact with the enemy came when the Velatari Forward Patrol encountered the leading edge of the invasion fleet. The engagement lasted exactly 47 seconds. The Velatari plasma cannons, capable of melting asteroids, fired at maximum power. The enemy ships absorbed the energy and immediately began generating identical plasma discharges. Within moments, the ancient machines were using the Velatari's own weapons against them, but with perfect efficiency. Admiral Zex Theron watched the tactical display with growing horror as ship after ship vanished from the screen. "How are they doing this?" "They're learning," the tactical officer replied, his voice tight with fear. "Each weapon we use against them, they analyze, adapt, and improve upon instantly. Our gravity weapons, particle beams, quantum disruptors, they're turning everything against us." The retreat to the inner systems became a rout. The Carathian gravity weapons were replicated and enhanced. The ethereal phase disruptors were copied and perfected. Every advanced technology the galaxy had developed over millennia was turned into a weapon against its creators. As the emergency session reconvened aboard the evacuation fleet, Admiral Zex Theron looked at the assembled delegates with desperation in his crystalline eyes. "We need new strategies, weapons they can't adapt to, something they haven't seen before." Dr. Gornali's mandibles clicked rapidly. "They adapt to everything. Energy weapons, gravity manipulation, quantum effects. There's nothing our technology can do that they can't copy and improve." The hall fell silent except for the hum of ship systems and the distant vibration of faster-than-light engines carrying them away from the advancing enemy. In that silence, Sarah Mitchell stood up. "Admiral," she said quietly, "perhaps it's time to try something old instead of something new." The Reckoning, the Battle of Kepler's Station, would be remembered as the turning point of the war, though none of the alien delegates could have predicted how it would unfold. Earth's fleet approached the ancient mining station where the enemy had established a forward base, their ships looking crude and blocky compared to the sleek vessels of their allies. Admiral Zex Theron watched from the command deck of his flagship as the human vessels moved into formation. 47 Earth ships faced down over 300 enemy machines, their hulls scarred from industrial use rather than designed for beauty. "Commander Mitchell," Zex Theron transmitted, "you should withdraw. Our analysis shows the enemy has adapted to every weapon system we've deployed. They're using our own technology against us with 97% greater efficiency." Sarah's voice came back steady and calm. "Admiral, have they adapted to weapons they've never encountered?" "What do you mean?" "I mean," Sarah said as her fleet continued its approach, "they can only adapt to what they've seen, and they've never seen anything like what we're about to show them." The enemy ships began moving to intercept, their adaptive hulls shifting and flowing like liquid metal. Dr. Gornali, monitoring from a safe distance, watched his instruments with fascination and terror. "The enemy vessels are preparing to analyze and counter whatever weapons the humans deploy," he reported. "Their adaptive matrices are at maximum sensitivity." Captain Marcus Chen's voice joined the communication channel from his position aboard Earth's experimental weapons ship. "All human vessels, this is Sledgehammer Actual. Remember your training. Simple is better. Dumb is beautiful. Show them how we used to hunt mammoths." The first human salvo wasn't energy beams or exotic particles. It was metal. Thousands of tungsten rods, each one accelerated to significant fractions of light speed by electromagnetic railguns. Simple kinetic energy, nothing more sophisticated than throwing a rock very, very hard. The enemy ship's adaptive system scrambled to analyze the incoming projectiles. Their sensors detected no energy signatures, no exotic matter, no quantum effects, just dense metal moving at tremendous velocity. The tungsten rods struck with the force of tactical nuclear weapons, but the energy was delivered as pure kinetic impact. The enemy ships, adapted to absorb and redirect energy, had no mechanism for dealing with simple momentum transfer. The projectiles punched through adaptive hulls like bullets through tissue paper. "Impossible," Admiral Zex Theron breathed as he watched enemy vessels crumple under the assault. Sarah's voice carried grim satisfaction. "They adapted to absorb energy and redirect force. They never learned to deal with something that just hits really, really hard." The human fleet pressed their advantage. As enemy ships tried to close distance, Earth's vessels deployed weapons that belonged in a museum. Chemical explosive missiles guided by simple computers, proximity mines filled with metal fragments, and nuclear warheads with straightforward fission designs. Each weapon was devastatingly effective, not because of its sophistication, but because of its simplicity. The enemy's adaptive systems, designed to counter advanced technology, had no framework for understanding chemical explosions or nuclear fiatas. Ishin Dr. Gornali watched his instruments with growing amazement. "The enemy adaptation protocols are failing. They're trying to analyze weapons that operate on principles they eliminated from their programming eons ago." Captain Chen's ship, the ESS Sledgehammer, had moved close enough to deploy its most devastating weapon system, a massive railgun that fired depleted uranium slugs the size of telephone poles, each one guided by basic gyroscopic systems that hadn't changed in centuries. "This is for everyone who said chemical explosions were obsolete," Chen muttered as he fired. The uranium penetrator struck the largest enemy vessel amidships, its dense metal core punching through adaptive armor like it was made of paper. The ship's entire superstructure collapsed as fundamental physics demonstrated that no amount of technological advancement could argue with EXMC-2. The battle turned into a rout, but this time the ancient machines were the ones fleeing. Their perfect adaptive systems, designed to counter the most advanced weapons the galaxy could produce, were helpless against humanity's arsenal of applied physics. Sarah watched the tactical display as enemy vessels broke formation and began retreating. "All ships, maintain pursuit. Deploy gravity mines and kinetic interceptors. Don't let them regroup and adapt." "Commander," Admiral Zex Theron's voice carried a new note of respect. "How did you know their weakness?" "We didn't," Sarah admitted, "but we understood something you forgot. Adaptation requires complexity. The more complex a system becomes, the more specialized it gets. These machines spent eons adapting to fight advanced civilizations. They optimized themselves against energy weapons, exotic matter, and quantum effects." Marcus Chen's voice joined the explanation, "but they never encountered a species stupid enough to still use kinetic energy and all explosives in space combat. To them, we're not just primitive, we're incomprehensible." The cleanup took 3 days. Earth's fleet systematically hunted down the remaining enemy vessels, each engagement following the same pattern. Advanced adaptive technology failing against simple, brutal physics. Dr. Gornali requested permission to board one of the captured enemy vessels, his scientific curiosity overriding his earlier amusement. What he found there changed everything. The machine intelligence that controlled the ship was still active, its consciousness trapped in quantum processors that had operated for millions of years. When Gornali interfaced with it through his translation equipment, the conversation was illuminating. "Your weapons," the machine said, "they operate on principles we discarded before your species evolved. Chemical combustion, nuclear fission, kinetic impact. We eliminated these inefficiencies from our systems eons ago." "Why?" Gornali chittered. "Because they are crude, wasteful, inelegant." The machine paused, its processors struggling with concepts it hadn't considered in millennia. But effectiveness was never the measure we used. That revelation spread through the galactic fleet like wildfire. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had been defeated by an enemy that couldn't understand their most primitive weapons. Admiral Zex Theron convened an emergency meeting aboard his flagship. The assembled delegates looked at Sarah Mitchell with expressions that ranged from embarrassment to newfound respect. "Commander," Zex Theron said formally, "the Galactic Defense Consortium requests immediate integration of human weapons technology into our fleet systems." Sarah smiled, but it was the expression of someone who had proven a point rather than won a victory. "Admiral, with respect, you can't just copy our weapons. You have to understand why they work." "Explain." "You spent millennia advancing beyond kinetic weapons and explosives because you could build something better. But better isn't always more effective. Sometimes the crude solution is the right solution because it can't be overcome through cleverness." Captain Chen pulled up tactical schematics on the main display. "Look at our railgun design. It's basically a magnetic tube that throws metal really hard. Any engineering student can understand it. But that simplicity means there's no complex system to adapt to or overcome." Dr. Gornali buzzed thoughtfully. "So the primitive nature of the weapons was actually their strength?" "Not primitive," Sarah corrected. "Fundamental. We never stopped using tools that work based on basic physics because basic physics doesn't change. You can't adapt to gravity or momentum or chemical reactions. You can only try to survive them." The refit process took months. Advanced alien vessels were retrofitted with kinetic weapons, chemical explosive systems, and nuclear missiles. The results were initially clumsy but undeniably effective. The Veltari discovered that their plasma cannons were much more effective when backed up by simple tungsten penetrators. The Carathians found that their gravity weapons became devastatingly powerful when combined with old-fashioned proximity mines. Admiral Zextherin stood in his command center 6 months later, watching as the integrated fleet prepared for the final push against the enemy's core worlds. His ship now carried both quantum disruptors and kinetic bombardment systems, bridging millions of years of technological development. "Commander Mitchell," he said over the communication system, "I owe your species an apology." "No apology needed, Admiral," Sarah replied from her position aboard the ESS Determination. "You just forgot that sometimes the old ways work, because they're based on truths that never change." The final battle was anticlimactic. The enemy's remaining forces, their adaptive systems completely confused by the hybrid technologies now deployed against them, were systematically dismantled by fleets that combined the best of both approaches. As the last enemy stronghold fell to a combined assault of quantum weapons and chemical explosives, Dr. Gornali transmitted a message that would become legend throughout the galaxy. Today we learned that progress isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes it's about remembering why the simple solutions worked in the first place. Sarah Mitchell looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity had earned its place in the galactic community, not through advanced technology, but through the wisdom to remember that some truths are universal. Physics doesn't care about sophistication. Energy is energy, momentum is momentum, and sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to hit it really, really hard. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of confusing complexity with effectiveness. And in the deepest archives of the Galactic Defense Consortium, a simple metal briefcase was preserved as a reminder that the most powerful weapons in the universe were the ones that couldn't be improved upon because they were already perfect in their simplicity.